On today's episode of High Functioning Autist Tries to Explain His Own Logic. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I have for you a bit of an explanatory video kind of thing. While I try to figure out how I'm going to edit the build process of the whole entirety of my spaceship that I have right here. And that is this. This is the logic that I have within the spaceship over here, right? And I'd like to explain to you today how and hopefully why it works, because I have a lot of video from me building the ship and I don't necessarily fancy going through all that right now. So instead I'm going to do this. So I think I'm just going to begin and see where this goes. So first off, we have our turrets. They shoot when they're in use. They can aim up, down, left, right. All in all, pretty cool, I think. And the whole system takes orders from this angle sensor and this angle sensor. Now, before, you may or may not remember, in the short that I posted, I don't know exactly when it was anymore, but it looked... I wonder if I have that version still. Yeah, this thing. For some reason, this was not working as well as I remember it did before I saved it. So I tried doing it again, and I had like this entire line of spaghetti logic that basically spat the same number back out again as it did when I put it in here, which was kind of sad. I've somehow achieved nothing. I've created a spaghetti nothing burger. I was like, oh, yes, it's working. But the number coming out of the sensor and the number at the end of the spaghetti logic is the exact same. I've achieved diddly squat. It forced me to try and come up with something else. And I didn't want to use the angle sensor because I wanted a challenge, but unfortunately it was a little bit too much for my brain, and the spaceship ended up taking me 7.5 hours that day anyway. But that's not the point here. The point is, I'd like to show you what all of this does. So first, we have this angle sensor. It's on an aiming servo, and the aiming servo is on a steering hinge that angles it up ever so slightly so that there's a visible top to the angle sensor, so it knows what I'm doing. This sends information to this number display as, like, this doesn't really need to be here, but it was easier for me to visualize if I had the number here, so I could then see what was going on in the rest of it. So this would then go on to, let's say, for example, let's take this front turret here, the yellow turret. It goes into these comparison logic gates right here. These detect if the range is greater than minus 0.5 and less than 0.5. Because as you can see on the number display on the aiming servo, that is the range that I have given it. And if the range between negative 0.5 and positive 0.5 is true, so both of these are on, they activate this AND gate, which then allows this product aggregate gate to be triggered. Now, what this does is basically it allows me to send the data from this number display directly to the rotating servo, while also giving it a condition for when it's supposed to happen. So you have the data from the number display going straight into the aggregate gate, which means as a baseline we have the whatever is here. Let's say for instance it's 0.25. You have your 0.25 in here, A signal strength of 1 comes from this AND gate, goes into here. 0.25 times 1 is obviously 0.25. And then what I want to do is, because I don't want to go just 0.5 in each direction, I want to go a full 1 strength in each direction because my angle is 90 degrees. So I multiply it by 2 with this arithmetic gate. It doesn't have to be on multiply because this takes the product of all its inputs anyway. And so finally, once all of that happens, it just multiplies this, this, and that together and puts it in the rotating servo. So now, when I get a signal strength out of the angle sensor of negative 0.5, it'll go perfectly perpendicular to the direction of travel. At 0 point straight, and at positive 0.5, it'll go that way. Now, the condition for the rotating servo to move also applies for the permission for the flak cannons to shoot, which is where this comes in. This is an OR logic gate set to left click, and so when these two are true and this is true, then the flak cannons will fire. So when I'm looking away, notice how the front turret is not shooting. And now it is. It'll only fire when we are within range. When I hold right click, the servos turn on. Nice and simple. And left click doesn't do anything. But when I hold right click, then left click begins to do something. And that's essentially what is happening over here with this AND gate. It's just a little bit more complicated because I also need to read data from this angle sensor. And the same goes for all of these. The especially difficult bit came with the one going backwards, because as you get closer towards the back, then you see the closer you get to straight on, the bigger the number is. And I need the number to be smaller the closer I get to being right here. So there's a whole string of complicated stuff in here going on. Well, I mean, it looks complicated, but it's really quite simple. All I'm doing is converting this to be, instead of minus 0.5 to minus 1 and 0.5 to 1, instead it's 1 to 0 and 0 to minus 1. I couldn't tell you exactly what I did here if I tried, but here's what all the gates do. And then over here on the wall, this is the vertical aiming, which is a lot more simple, thankfully. You have your angle sensor going to the number display. The number display goes into all of these. And then for the front and back ones, it's nice and simple. All I need to do is I forwarded it to a number display and also to a functions block. This feeds into the AND gates again so that it can only fire when we are within vertical range. So I think if I go too high, notice how if I'm looking too high up, the turret doesn't know I'm looking in that direction. So that's an extra safeguard to make sure that nothing breaks. Naturally, it did break because, well, I wanted to make the spaceship look pretty and the connecting part got in the way, but it's okay. I learned to live with it. But that's besides the point. The ones on the sides were a little bit more complicated because we have one going up and we have one going down, but it's not too bad. We have slightly more detections going on. These detect if it's these detect the angle. So basically, if we're looking down at about, let's say, a 10-degree angle, then it will still aim downwards a little bit. You see that? If we look too far down, it'll stop aiming. So if we're looking at about this much and higher, then the comparison gate will trigger, and it will allow the it'll first allow the turret to move, and it will also allow the gun to fire. So if we're looking too high up, notice that the gun on the bottom isn't shooting because it cannot physically look in the direction that I'm looking. So hopefully that makes sense, and I hope this is good enough while you wait for me to edit the video with the actual spaceship in it. But yeah, I hope you learned something. If you're looking forward to the spaceship, then leave a like on this video. If you want to see more videos from me and you don't want to miss another upload, then definitely subscribe and hit the notification bell. But as far as this video is concerned, that'll be it from me. My name is Zitafime, and this has been a rough explanation of my turret logic for the spaceship that is coming tomorrow. I hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you all again in the next one. Peace.